We have that technology to build a see-through fabric, like a fishing
Right.
line, that's white.
Right.
And
Right.
when you look through it, you don't lose the vision.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming back to another discussion at Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm here with Brianna Ludwig. I'm Jordan Skop. We're excited to bring on our guest in a few minutes. What we do at Foul Ball Safety Now Talks is we have guests that come on our program and they learn about the issues, sometimes for the first time, just a few days ago, and then they'll be prepared for us with some questions to ask us so they can find out for themselves or their own perspective about this Foul Ball Safety Now campaign. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. Excited to bring our guest on shortly. But before that, I'd like to talk about some news, things that we've been observing at Foul Ball Safety Now. What's been happening is we're in the month of October. We're in the National League and the American League playoffs. So there's 4 teams left for the opportunity to go to the World Series. And one thing I've been talking about, which I'll get to in a second, was the incident from about a week and a half ago, where the baseball player who had hit 2 home runs earlier in the game, Jorge Polanco, hit a couple of hit a ground ball into the infield where the bat broke. It was a trickler, and he got an infield hit. We didn't know where the bat had flown into till it was commercial time, and when they were doing a change of pitchers in the same inning as they were going to commercial, they showed in slow motion the bat coming into the seats like a boomerang, a broken bat coming into the seats like a boomerang, and you're even hearing the announcers say on top of that, "Yikes, look out." So, if that's not a wake-up call, I don't know when it'll ever be a wake-up call, when broken bats are still making their way into over nets in 2025, coming in like boomerangs, like spears that could pierce your heart. So that was for everyone to see. Unfortunately, as we've been looking at social media, we didn't see anyone speak about it, even after the announcer highlighted, "Yikes, look out," as we're seeing the bat come into the seats from the seating perspective. A broken bat, like a barrel, like a boomerang, like a spear that could unfortunately do some really bad damage. So I want to keep talking about that. And then also something else I observed yesterday, watching the playoff game between the Dodgers and the Brewers. There was a ground ball. It was a throwing error by the third baseman, and the ball goes into the camera well. And that's where the cameras hang out. And the sideline reporter for TBS, Lauren Shahadi, she happened to be in the booth, and the announcers say something like, "Oh, Lauren, I hope you're okay." But it was almost like, Lauren, she can take it, or if she got hit, she'd be okay because she's taking one for the team. Instead of saying something like, "Man, they need some protection for those camera people and Lauren," because the overthrow, or the ball that got past the first baseman, I don't think it was hard enough to do serious damage, but I've seen balls go into the camera well on other occasions really fast. Sometimes a shortstop will throw it to the second baseman for the force out, and the second baseman will then throw it to first base and overthrow the first baseman at a high speed where poor those guys in the camera well, they're sitting ducks if they're exposed. Now, I'm not sure about all other ballparks, but we certainly got another reminder that overthrows or balls that get past the first baseman could reach human beings that are not ready to see or stop that ball. We've interviewed cameramen who've worked at games. We met a cameraman a couple of years ago, Brendan and I, at Foul Ball Safety Now. We've interviewed more than 80 people, maybe 80 people all in all, including a cameraman who was telling us his own experiences of being fearful about the overthrows and talking about situations in his own career with us. So this is just a conversation that we wanna have with everyone. It's not just the fans, but it's also the workers that may be in harm's way, and what are we doing to take the precautions to make sure they're not exposed to these line drives or these overthrows? That's, the workers within the game, and certainly, we're gonna get into, of course, the foul ball issues, balls that fly inside the ballparks, balls that fly outside the ballparks. We'll be following up soon with the Queens College investigation. When people go to Foul Ball Safety Now, they'll see Queens College investigation. And we put 3 letters out to them. The last one was in early September. So we're due to give them another letter. We feel like the students athletes who are stressed out knowing they could hurt people near the ballpark. There's an elementary school right next to the playing field in Queens College. When people Google Earth Queens College, they'll notice an elementary school nearby, I mean, right next door, where there's school students that are gathering around the field, outside the field. And these school students, these student athletes are concerned about hitting balls over the sides during practices and games, which can obviously do some serious damage. So they have that on their minds, and we want to address that issue at Queens College and probably many other colleges, and probably most, if not all, of the 169 professional ballparks where balls clearly land outside ballparks, where unfortunately there was a woman. People can see the Modesto situation. Please click on Unknown Modesto. You'll notice that there was a woman who was struck outside the ballpark in Modesto, California in July of 2023. We got notified from an attorney getting ready for a case, and we in the spring, and we learned that in July of 2025 that case was settled, but nobody really knew about it. We wrote 3 letters to the Modesto newspaper. People can see that. So that's a situation. So we believe that student athletes and young professional athletes, their mental health is compromised because they know that eventually one of their balls are going to do serious damage, whether it be inside the ballpark, whether it be outside the ballpark. So I really encourage everyone to see the letters that we wrote. And it's a bigger conversation, not just at Queens College. So, all right, I think we can turn it over to Brianna. Brianna, how are you?
Doing good. I'm excited to dive into this conversation today. It's very important and helps shed some light on this issue. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome our guest for today, Dave Boudin. He is a sports professional leader in North America. Dave, welcome.
Good afternoon. How are you, Jordan, Brianna? I like where you're going with this, and I think a lot of the work that you've done behind the scenes is created some insight and is bringing some national attention. Because I come from a very similar situation, the hockey industry. I've played baseball in facilities across Canada and the United States. Part of the risk management when I get into building and constructing facilities, whether it's gyms or baseball fields or hockey arenas. And this is one of the things that comes up a lot. So my question today is there a interest from Major League Baseball to say, okay, and I was just at Steinbrenner Field where the Rays were playing. I've been watching all the games, but
Right,
I sat on the third base side. They extended the netting, obviously, to probably about 30 feet, and every ball that became a dead play ball was thrown into the stands by the athlete or the Major League Baseball
mhm,
player. He
mhm,
turned around,
mhm.
he threw it in. My kind of view on this is, and I want to get your feedback, is and
Sure.
we're not always athletes that are watching the game, so
Right,
we can't adjust quick enough with our eyes and hands to kind of protect ourselves when a ball is moving pretty quickly. And even just the
right.
throwing the ball over the net can create an injury.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's worthy of a discussion. Unfortunately, Josh Hamilton, I don't know if everyone remembers, about 10 years ago, he went to toss a ball to a fan and it came a little short, and that fan tumbled over and passed away, died. That was a big thing. And that was all in good fun, but He leaned over the rail. I think it was in Anaheim, but I could be wrong, so I don't wanna say. Yes, it's routine that, after a third out, the players are tossing it above the net and yeah, somebody may not be ready. There was a
Yeah.
baseball player by the name of Jeffrey Francoeur who played for the Mets, who actually is part of the announcing team for TBS, so it brings up something. I used to see him have a catch. One time I saw him having a catch with a fan, and I was like, "Man, Jeffrey, if you miss, somebody could be hurt." The fan was in the seat with the glove, so what a thrill that would be if I had a glove and I'm sitting in the seats, and I said to the baseball player, "Hey, would you have a catch with me?" from 80 feet away, you know? Doesn't mean that Francoeur's throws are gonna be so accurate all the time, and maybe
Yep.
Jeffrey would like to talk about that one day, because 'cause I'm wondering if he ever was off target, or if the person he was throwing with may not be a major leaguer themselves. Maybe they're not gonna catch his throw, and then it deflects off the glove or something. So that raises some questions that you bring up.
No, you're right. I'm concerned about the safety too. So I think it's
Yeah.
a two-pronged conversation. One is, how do you put netting up that you feel is going to, be safe for everybody? And then two, how does it create less of a impedance of a visual effect?
I think people need to rethink their experience going to the games. How do we do that? How do we tell people, hey, business as usual? It really doesn't work, because we just studied the issue independently, and we found out. We looked at foul ball safety now, and we saw Exhibit A1, which demonstrated in professional baseball potentially 350,000 foul balls per year. Now, many of them are going at hot zones, and many of them are potentially doing serious damage. And why are we putting our fans in positions to be subjected to that? So I want everyone to study it. It's kind of, you can see it for yourself. It's a publication called 538, which put something out in 2019. And Brendan and I, the journalist I've been with now for 6 years, we took a look at it and we added more to it, so people can check that out. About getting people to get off the mindset about, first of all, the netting maybe not being transparent enough so you'd enjoy the game. I don't think that's an issue now, and if it was still an issue, then we would discuss it and maybe have a conversation, put everything on the table to decide, hey, listen, I believe the consensus would be the netting is not really gonna affect anyone in 2025 based on the technology. But let's say back in 1970, 1971, after a 14-year-old boy died at Dodger Stadium, why would it take 45 years for Major League Baseball, 45, 46 years, to finally install netting above the dugout, when they could have had a conversation back in 1971 telling fans, listen, we know more or less that there's going to be X amount of these line drives coming at the sections, and we have to have a conversation about this. So let's do it. But they did not. There was never been an obligation for baseball to tell us exactly what the risks are. Now, in regarding the experience of changing the experience of people coming to games and thinking, oh, we're not going to have an opportunity, we won't be exposed to foul balls anymore, how depressing. Why doesn't baseball finally wrap their head around the issue? They can certainly come up with retractable nets that go up to the sky and come down. Just roll it up and roll it down before games, and give kids hundreds of balls, and let even kids go on the field and have a catch. A lawyer came on our recording and said, hey, if the whole place was netted and all the balls never reached the seats, we could certainly project, based on the launch angle and the exit velocity, exactly what seat it would have landed in. So then we can give these people a ball after the game, like, hey, that ball would have hit your seat. There's all kinds of things that could be done, but
Yeah.
we need to get to the table, and we're not.
Yeah.
And we're not at the table. It's just the three of us talking.
Yeah, there's almost a knee-jerk reaction from some of the more diehard baseball fans of this, of being against the netting, because the player interaction, the catching of the foul ball has been such a part of the tradition of the game, and the tradition is almost married to baseball at this point in time because of how old the sport is. But if you look at the legacy of baseball, then the fan injuries have been a part of that legacy for a very long time as well. And these fans that may be against netting as their knee-jerk reaction aren't educated, because that education isn't readily available, as Jordan was highlighting, I usually liken it to a toddler not wanting to wear a seatbelt. The toddler might think it's inconvenient, but they also might not understand the risk of being in a moving vehicle the same way that the fan that's not educated might see it as a nuisance, but it's actually going to save their lives and save a lot of people's lives as long as that net is far enough and wide enough, which is a problem in and of itself as well, because even with the netting that exists today, things are still making their way over the net and injuring people. So, yeah, it's
And
just
you
a matter of educating.
and you see enough YouTube clips and highlight videos of dads with babies in their hands and a fall ball just lining towards them, and it's sort
Oh
of like a
god.
a hero move, and they're applauding the hero move of the dad with one hand with a hot dog and the baby in the other
Right.
and his beer tumbling, and, it shouldn't have to be, applauded like that. It should be that's a concern. Any Major League Baseball person that's on the side of on the corporate side should go, "Oh my goodness, what can we do to have this not happen again?"
Yeah, it perpetuates the stimulus of great fun, good time, and unfortunately, dads may be coming to games saying, "I wanna be one of those dads," but they're not telling you even when the producers with the cameras are highlighting, "Wow, what a catch with that dad." I saw an interaction, one of the Mets announcers I remember, watching a Mets broadcast about a month ago. A man caught a ball with one hand, the baby in the other. So there was a few comments going on from the announcers when the producer showed the replay, like great catch by the dad, and the other announcer saying, "Oh boy, is he going to catch some flack when he gets home?" Because the mom is not gonna be pleased that dad is dangling baby while trying to catch a ball. Other dads at home are gonna be like, "I wanna be one of those dads." Instead of the announcers saying, "He's a lucky dog, and he should not have been in a position to hold his child." They're not sending that message. They're almost saying like, "Man, buy a ticket to the game, and this could be your experience as well." They're not saying it could have been an unfortunate situation. They don't highlight any of that. Same thing with Lauren Shahadi yesterday being in the camera well, working for TBS and saying, "Oh, Lauren could have been struck." We know of a sideline reporter that was struck more than once by a serious line drive. So it's workplace environment issue. We had an OSHA employee on a couple of months ago who fortunately found us maybe similar ways that you found us in our public posting, and very excited we were very excited to have her on. She brought a workplace perspective, and we hope that she actually does more with all the information we shared on our conversation, Dave.
And, I've been, sort of investigating in the backside, hockey rink netting,
Yeah.
because there's some massive safety issues in hockey. That puck is moving at a high speed, and some baseball netting and batting cage netting, and I work in an environment where we take a lot of slap shots, and we have extra netting
Yes.
so the pucks don't fly out in our training facility. And
Right.
I keep going back and back, and I've had the conversations many times in a lot of construction meetings going, we have technologies with fabric now,
Right.
whether it comes out of, Indonesia or China or, hopefully the US, we have that technology to build a see-through fabric, like a fishing
Right.
line that's
Right.
white, and
Right.
when you look through it, you don't lose the vision. It's
Right.
these small knots, but it can, plus, with the technology of the analytics of the baseball and how far it goes, these in a drop of a hand, AI can produce how fast that ball is going, just like you said, and where it's
Right.
going. So
Right.
we know those things, so we can't make those excuses anymore. But I
Right.
feel I want your thoughts on
Sure.
a a a a a netting that's clear and
Mhm.
see-through.
Yeah, I think today most people who take in the experience are fine with it. And I don't and if for some reason, like you said, the people management have said things along the way that our fans weren't interested in netting, regardless of where the technology was where we were and how advanced we are with for the possibility of very transparent netting where there's not even noticeable. But even when there may have been a lack of innovation with netting at the time, when management says things like, our fans aren't interested in netting, but at the same time, they're not educating us about what they have knowledge of, they have every opportunity every winter to evaluate exactly what went down last year and what's happening in the following year. Similar to when the 14-year-old boy died in 1970, certainly in the winter months, they could have educated all the season ticket holders at Dodger Stadium in those expensive seats or in these seats
Wow.
close to the dugout but near the field. But they haven't, and they haven't been required. And none of the netting installations are done by any oversight agency. It's all private. It's all 30 major league ballparks who pay the salaries of 120 other teams. They all have 4 affiliates, and there's another 49 teams called the Major League Partner League teams. So that's 30 major league clubs. That's 169 other professional clubs that are clearly doing netting how they please. And we feel like there should have been more, and there needs to be more. We're still finding out about self-reported injuries in 2025, even when it's not reported in major news magazines or newspapers. We're still hearing about it. It's still a major issue inside and outside. And it's all about just telling the people what it is, what's happening. If you're not going to apply yourself to doing what we believe would be the right thing, then finally level with your fan base and market your sport as this is a danger kind of thing. This is like running with the bulls kind of thing. But there's a question that needs to be raised while they're marketing their flirting with danger sport. What about the children? Should people 18 and older be allowed? That's the way they should have been marketing their sport. Everything else, in my mind, has fell short. I don't think there's ever been any integrity in baseball when you're not putting the information on the table, because fans seem to be open, Dave, on our recordings, willing to learn about important information they may have missed. We're bringing it to them, and now they understand that their experiences sitting in, let's say, the same section as where Linda Goldblum died in 2018 in Loge level. If they sat in that same section, they didn't even maybe know about it till 6 months later. She died, unfortunately, at the end of August. She got hurt at the end of August, maybe she died a few days later. It wasn't known till the following spring about what happened to Linda at Dodger Stadium. So people were going to those same sections and the same row and the same seat at least a month, in the whole month of September. It wasn't advertised. Nobody knew about it. I don't think the Dodgers told their season ticket holders or the people who sat in the same section that, did you know what happened a day ago? All these things. Why don't just tell us? And then we can get past it. We could all be on an equal level playing field, period. So that's my story. We've been at this for a long time, Dave. Yeah.
Just another thing that they would really need is somebody without fiscal interest to come in and tell them just how high, far, and wide the nets need to go. Because even the nets that they have up now and these so-called extensions that they've been doing, I call it a mirage of safety because we still know of objects that are flying over the nets and injuring people. We even know of a ball earlier this season that actually went through the net at a Mets game, which means that they're not being regularly monitored for upkeep and making sure that they're going to actually block the ball because the ball went right through the net and left a hole. So the person that maybe was sitting behind the net thinking that they were safe, even if their eyes are on the game, they're still unsafe, but maybe even more relaxed, that ball is going to go right through the net and possibly injure someone. So
Yeah, we don't know the maintenance of protocols,
exactly.
so we need to know if that stuff needs to be expressed. So we're not saying anyone's negligent in regarding the netting matter, but we did write the Mets, and we would have liked to have gotten a response about how they're dealing with are the materials strong enough? Maybe they need to rethink how they're, making the squares, each tiny square, or, to make sure that there's enough strength to hold those line drives coming through. But we
Yeah.
asked.
Now, have you had the opportunity to have a conversation to possibly go to an AGM, the annual general meetings with MLB, and have this discussion point come up?
It's almost like me telling you you're my neighbor and your fence is an eyesore to me, and I think you know that already. It's not something they're interested in hearing about from us. They haven't done enough to tell us about who is involved with keeping up with the netting upgrade movement, which isn't really that effective because we're not really knowing who that department is, if there really is a department that is looking over the netting installations and the netting protocols and supposed mandates or recommendations about netting. You can't have conversations with these people. They put out PR stock responses, and I can give you like the last few they've given out in the last 5, 6 years, and that's it. It's very hard to get in touch with these people. And people can see that stuff and our frustration. But we're not frustrated. We're in healthy aggression. Our work at Foul Ball Safety Now, and please, everyone can see our journey. We're just trying to get people caught up to speed. We want agencies to get the memos we feel like they should have gotten that would have raised major questions about children for sure, possibly about OSHA. We would hope that woman we connected to is thinking about this right now. I did speak to somebody from OSHA a few years back. He was on his way out, sort of in the retirement, and we would love for the vendors and the ushers and the team employees that feel threatened by foul balls to get together and make some noise, because think about all the teenagers that are working at some of these 169 ballparks whose backs are turned to the play when they're going up and down the aisles. They don't even have a chance. And Hunter Wendelstedt, who's an umpire, clearly demonstrates the whole idea when people say, "Oh, you need to get off their phone, you need to pay attention." Well, Hunter Wendelstedt is an umpire, and he hasn't been back to work in 4 or 5 months after he was struck. People can see what we have at the website called Exhibit A2. He's 90 feet away, which is home to first, and he's probably another 10 feet behind. That's about 100 feet. And he got caught right in between the head, right in the middle of his head, and he hasn't been back to work. Think about the 30 to 40 ballparks that we know of in the 169 ballparks that have no netting past end of dugouts, which may be also 100 feet away, a little to the right, a little to the left. And those fans, they don't have a chance. We're not superheroes. So even when there's a sign in front of your seat on the cup holder where you put your drink or your soda, you're going to see, "Be careful of foul ball," or you'll hear an announcement, "Be careful of foul ball." Last I checked, we're not action figures. We're not superheroes. And baseball players will not be sitting there on their night off because they tell their own parents, "You need to sit in a certain spot, non-negotiable," but they're not telling everyone else. Brendan and I have interviewed more than 80 people. About 80 people we know. We've interviewed more than 30 baseball players. So we know their perspectives, and they're curious about this conversation. And we're the first people they're talking about it outside their own communities. So it's very interesting to get these guys on the record, Dave. So there's a lot to be learned about how business was conducted then and how we're conducting business now. And let's just put it on the table. And that's what we want to do.
No, I agree 100% there. I think somehow you've got to get an advocate to kind of push you forward to get a seat at the table. And first of all, my mind says, "Oh yeah, let's really focus on fan safety," you know. And then you brought up a great point. What about the employees? So it's basically anybody that walks through the front gate that I mean, it's people safety at the end.
Yeah, we know of situations. It really goes back to first evidence I've ever heard about this was in 1957. Richie Ashburn, one of the original Mets, was a Philadelphia Philly at the time. He hits a ball. He strikes a woman. Unfortunately, she's getting carried off on a stretcher, and in the next pitch, she's hit while she's on a stretcher. How crazy is that? So people should Google that article. It's crazy. But it's just a matter of getting people caught up to speed on the issue. We've talked to so many victims, and we know their state of mind right now because they're not really sure how they feel about baseball. Definitely bitter, and how to feel about it, and it has a generational effect as well. We've interviewed 2 people who were blinded, unfortunately, in one eye, and one of those ladies was, one of the other guy was a gentleman, but then this particular woman was, a connection to my lawyer in New York who early on in my work with Brendan, she asked me if I wanted to interview her girlfriend. So she's one of the people we interviewed. She was blinded as a teenager at Shea Stadium. She's a mom years later. Her son is playing Little League Baseball, but she's feeling nervous, maybe because of what happened to her. And eventually, the 8-year-old quits baseball and does something else. So that issue was really never dealt with in the family. She was relieved that he quit baseball, and probably because she was feeling nervous about her son getting hurt by a baseball. And maybe he was maybe trying to make his mom feel happy or relieved that you won't have to deal with that anymore, mom. I'm going to do something else. So there could have been that. And maybe that 8-year-old is now 30. Maybe he's telling his own child, you don't want to play baseball. Look what happened to your grandmother. So there's a kind of generational effect depending on the family. And unfortunately, many families were never affected. Many families still think baseball's wholesome and apples pie as there is, but they weren't there the day before, the day after, where some of these people we've met along the way, like a young girl by the name of Alexis, who was 4 years old going to her first baseball game. Her dad was given tickets to a game and took the family. And Alexis, who was very brave to speak with us, um, she tells us about issues, and the father tells us about situations where she's a teenager now. She's doing well in school, which is good, but she's forgetting things. So she has post neurological issues. And another little girl we spoke to just not too long ago, 6 months, a little longer than 6 months ago, who recorded with us. She was 9. She was unconscious for 4 or 5 days as a child, getting smoked by a baseball. What's that? And even her parents may have not dealt with it the right way because they took free tickets from the team for years instead of telling the team, we don't need your fucking tickets. How about fix the problem? And, so we heard her story. And, this is all public record. These people need reconciliation, and I'm gonna stay the course. This is all history, and we're putting it on the table, and sorry how much mud on your fucking face there is, but that's what it is.
Yeah, when Linda Goldblum died at the Dodger game in 2018, it took over 5 months for her death to be reported publicly. And that means that there were people sitting in the same exact seat that she sat in, that she was struck by a ball in, and they had no idea that somebody had died in that seat. I just can't think of any other industry that would allow people to inhabit the same space that somebody just died in. I mean, you can't sell a house legally without letting someone know that the former resident died, but you can have a child come sit in the seat that a woman died in at a baseball game, and there's still projectiles flying all over the place. It's crazy.
Just trying to have a conversation, and that's what we're doing here at Foul Ball Safety Now. And when people are willing to be introduced to maybe memorandums that they may have missed and hopefully have the attitude of bring it on, Jordan, tell us what we missed, then we're going to continue to do that. And of course, we want people to take these memos and say, hey, now I have to rethink my own experience, or hey, maybe there's something I can do. And that's what we want. We want agencies to say, hey, we should have learned about this a long time ago, better late than never. And individuals, someone like myself who hopefully has some time to make some noise with me, or a bigger entity that wants to take this on, and we can just be a consultant to them. But I think we're filling a void by trying to create this conversation. And
So, do you working down the line here with
yeah,
colleges, and even pro ball in like Japan? Have you heard any kind of feedback from them on on this project?
I'm glad you brought up Japan. Japan seems to they figured it out, and to the extent where it's in their culture to communicate the reality of what could potentially happen at the game. Now, having ushers blow whistles on every aisle as balls coming over the net? Is that helpful to give people a more alert that a ball is about to come right next to them? Yeah, I think it is. Having something on the scoreboard, which people may say, well, that's a little weird. Why are they showing somebody get hit by a foul ball and then being carted off in an ambulance? Well, at least they got people thinking about it in their animation messaging. Okay. They have something called the Excite seats in Japan, where this was featured on HBO, I think in 2016, long before I got involved, where it was part of the Brian Gumbel Real Sports, segment. I think people can catch a 3-minute, a trailer on the, if you search the whole segment for whatever reason is not available. I'm not sure if MLB has something to do with that, but, you can see some of that where they have Excite seats. They show fans sitting in the first few rows without nets. There's still children there. I'm like, "Why are children still there?" They have helmets and gloves, but a helmet's not gonna stop, a ball hitting you in the face, and why are they putting children in those areas? I saw that on the video. So I raised some, red flags even with them, but at least they're out front. It's in their culture to tell people that this is a reality. And I'm not really following what's happening throughout the world now that there's a lot of baseball happening over the last 20 years in many countries. So it's certainly worthy of a deeper dive. Certainly South America, probably we can raise some eyebrows about the netting over there. We spoke to a former baseball player son, I'm not gonna disclose the name right now, who told us his Dominican Republic experience. That was really interesting. But I have not examined, the way it's going around the world, but I'm glad you brought up Japan, Dave.
I know Major League Baseball's at the front and center right now with the World Series going on and these pennant races, but they need to step up their game and be a leader. Any more feedback from them lately?
Not really. Think about where we can be, and I say this in hopes that I believe all of our information will live in an exhibit at some point, preferably in Cooperstown, New York, right on the doorstep of the Baseball Hall of Fame, because there's already 300,000 visitors going every year. But opening up something, it's not going to be as big as the museum, the Hall of Fame museum, but it'll be one of those t-shirt souvenir stores converted into, hopefully opening up as a learning center. This is what you can find out. Just come in about foul ball safety now, walk in thinking one thing about the foul ball experience, come out thinking something totally different. Hopefully, it would open up as a campaign headquarters and transition into a place of remembrance. So we could all say in 2035, you remember those dark ages back in 2025 when business as usual was done this way, and then people can see for themselves. So I hope that will be for the next 100 years so people can be reminded there is a history, there is reconciliation, and just messaging that needs to be shared about how business was done and what people knew, and let people interpret for themselves. There's a couple of other sides to the story as well. So I'm happy to hear that. Lawyers have told me it's our responsibility all together to learn about what the realities are within the ballpark, but I beg to differ. I believe baseball could have done a lot more to educate all of us before we got to the ballpark, and they continually not do that. So I like to be fair. I don't like to inflate anything. We have something on the website, Exhibit A1, 350,000 foul balls per year in professional baseball because there's 2,400 plus major league games a year. There's 14,000. It's 5 times as many more games in those other leagues. And they said in 2019 there were 53 foul balls per game. We just took the number 25. We said if the average of foul balls per game in 2019 were 53. Let's just cut it in half or so to 25. So 14,000 times 25, still 9 innings in these other professional leagues. So maybe there's less foul balls. So let's just be safe and call it 25 instead of 53, that kind of thing. So we did that. That's 350,000 foul balls, everyone. And everyone should understand that many of these balls have gone too fast at too many kids' heads and people's heads, and it's not acceptable. And you guys did not educate us, and I want people to figure it out for themselves from their own experiences, and certainly today, from their own experiences and their own family experiences, how they want to rethink their experiences. And that's what we're going to do. And that's why this information needs to live and find a life. And these conversations are the beginning of change. And we hope agencies come in and decide that there's going to be now a collaborative effort on putting our minds together exactly the whole plan and who can sit where and why. And let's just put it out there. It's not a secret, man. Just put it out there, and baseball there could be integrity in baseball, but we're a long way off. It's never been, and it won't be until we finally address the past, we finally catch up to the present.
Well, no, I love to hear that. I mean,
Mhm,
I like the transparency side, and it always leads to more safety. But
mhm.
I really enjoyed this, Jordan, Brianna,
This is
and
terrific.
I'm on your
We
side on
pre
this. And anything I can do to help, I'll be following you guys and your
we
journeys.
appreciate
And
that.
So, Dave, as somebody who has had a long career in leadership positions in sports, do you feel like the leadership at the MLB has a certain level of responsibility and accountability owed that they are avoiding?
100%. I think from every leadership meeting I've been involved with. Lately, it's been with the National Hockey League, and I see how the wheels turn. They say change is it's like turning the Titanic, but you can always be part of the good side of this, which means change. And as a stakeholder and a member of someone who's been in lots of leadership situations and projects. 100%, I feel someone like myself and the people I work with need to be out in the front, leading the way. And I'm a doer. I mean, there's a lot of pretenders out there. I've been in hundreds of meetings, and at the end, I've just heard voices. But I kind of follow the path of, yeah, if something needs to be changed, I'm going to change it, and I want to be a leader in that versus a pretender.
Terrific.
Very inspiring.
This was great, Dave, and we thank you for being part of this with us, and we encourage everyone to look at foul ball safety now and get caught up on things we're in the middle of, and hopefully you guys will wanna give us feedback and get involved. So I wanna thank our guest and Brianna. Dave, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. This was really good. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed my time. Thank you, guys.